Welcome, dear attendees. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining in. Thank you for joining for this 12th webinar out of the long list of previous and upcoming webinars to come here at the Global ESCO Network. We are broadcasting from Copenhagen, Denmark, and thank you all for joining in from the different time zones. So today's topic, the Spanish ESCO market, trends and barriers. We have the director of ANESE joining in today to talk about the experience and the Spanish ESCO market, the current and past trends and barriers and thoughts for the future. But before I give the word over to Carlos, let me just take a step back. And for the ones that are new to the Global ESCO Network and how we operate, I'll just give a couple of guiding information about who we are and what we do. So we were established in 2020 with initial activities in 2019. We have expanded our coverage over time and gaining traction. We received initial interest from a lot of ESCO associations and potential partners. We're now up at 30 and increasing. We have some additions coming up that we'll advertise on our website and newsletter. But we are covering above 80% of the known global ESCO associations currently, and we are constantly working to fill the remaining gaps and also assisting countries where there are no active ESCO association in their establishments. So why are we here? We basically are here because there was an observation that ESCOs are not present on the global climate change agenda. I would dare to say that since its inception, the awareness of the potential contributions of ESCOs to meet the energy efficiency targets set by countries in the climate change context has actually increased. We like to believe that we have had contribution towards that end. But we also saw that there was no forum for ESCO associations and ESCOs to collaborate and share experiences at the global level. And in our work with ESCOs, we also had a hard time finding a common repository for authoritative literature on ESCOs. And that's why the work on establishing the Global ESCO Network started. The network partnered with the Efficiency Evaluation Organization, EVO, in 2020, which is contributed to enhancing the activities and the efforts of the Global ESCO Network, and they are a great partner to have on board. They co-host the Global ESCO Network Secretariats, and we cooperate on the website development and webinars and knowledge exchange, and also provided the backbone of the library that we currently run, and also organize their own events like this one that we promote together. So other learnings that we have noticed and that we're still working on, the observation that energy efficiency doesn't happen sufficiently quickly in terms of the climate challenges we are facing, but also sufficiently quickly according to the targets that the countries set themselves on energy efficiency. We also see that there is need for regulatory interventions to promote ESCOs and develop ESCO markets at the national and regional levels. And we also saw that sometimes energy efficiency regulatory interventions actually were counterproductive to the development of ESCO markets. So we work for sort of integrated use of the ESCO industry as an implementation partner to achieve the energy efficiency targets in the climate change agenda. Amongst the activities that we do and that we continue to do is the development of our own analysis and literature on the matter. We up until now have published 2 publications together with partners and contributors. We have a publication on the incorporation of ESCOs in nationally determined contributions, and the more recent regulatory barriers for energy service companies that we managed to put together through the assistance and knowledge sharing with the national ESCO associations themselves, a selection of them. And we plan to also expand on this analysis and incorporate more national ESCO markets in the analysis, expand on the regulatory barriers, and also the advice that we provide to countries, associations, and ESCOs based on these analyses. Then, of course, the publication database under which these publications belong to, which is divided into subtopics, but we have a wide range of literature on accounting, business models, certification, finance and risk management, market overview, case studies, the whole MNB topic, policies and regulatory barriers, but also other topics like procurement, super ESCOs, and technologies themselves. As mentioned, this is the 12th webinar, and we expect these numbers that you see here to continue to increase. We are very happy about the interest that we've seen from the ESCO community in these webinars and our other activities. And let me remind of the upcoming webinars that are going to run. There is an event for the EU Sustainable Energy Week on enabling ESCOs through a collaboration with EU ESCO and a now longer standing collaboration with the International Energy Agency on September 21. And on September 27, we have our own member, NAESCO, basically taking the next out of this line of webinars on ESCO markets, national ESCO market, and presenting the experience of the American ESCO market. With these words, I thank you for your attention, and I will give the word over to our partner, Carlos Ballesteros from ANESE, the Spanish ESCO Association. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you for all the entire organization of these events, especially to you, Federico, and Sharon. No, I think it's you are doing a really good job behind the Global ESCO Network, and it's clear that it's a new mechanism, it's a network mandatory for boost the ESCO market. So thank you so much for this organization of this event, and thank you so much for all the attendees of to participate today in this event. I go to share my screen, okay, and I like to talk about first of all about ANESE, to describe what are we doing in ANESE, and then I like to talk about the energy targets, the main context in Europe, and later in detailing in Spain. Of course, we try to moving on to Spanish ESCO market, consequently the opportunities and barriers, and thanks to these opportunities, the fields of interest of our ESCOs, and finally 2 types of contracts. So who's ANESE? ANESE is the National Association of Energy Service Companies in Spain. We have more than 10 years and more than 120 memberships. The majority of them are ESCOs companies, but we have all the value chain integrated with us. So we have the technology providers, we have financial institutions to allow this kind of model ESCO contract, and in order to that way to possibilitate this kind of model contract, we have consultants that allow this kind of model. So we have all the partnerships together in order to the networking to achieve this objective. So just a brief of our memberships. as Asociación, we work as in two ways, we can say. No, one of them is as a lobby, work closely with policymakers here in Spain and in Europe, of course. And in other hand, is part of our scope to work together in the ecosystem, thanks to the networking between all the participants of the energy sector. So how we are doing these goals, thanks to the working groups, our participation in European and national projects are to work together the position on different sectors. We have different publications. We are so active in the organization of events. We have in our web job board to boost our market, and of course training course, and sometimes different offer projects from third parties come to our sector. I would try to give the opportunity, of course, for all our memberships. We have currently 8 working groups, different of them. Some of them are typical for the accreditation of our ESCOs, also the financing to facilitate the access to financial lines for our ESCOs, contracting, work closely with the energy services in both public and private sector. Technology, we have big memberships that we are working, and thanks to this working group is one of our publication, not only in the technology guide, if done in the successful cases. And thanks to the technology, later we have the opportunity to talk about the white certificates that we are working with policymakers closely. Others about the classification. We have on Shield for this accreditation of our ESCOs. The energy transition, it was a mirror with the policy market, the different politics here in Spain, the legislation, we can say, and how we can work together with our memberships. And two of our field of interest of our ESCOs is the renovation and the energy communities. Finally, we have a working group to explain, to analyze, to inform for our colleagues the different programs related with the next generation European funds. So I said before about our participation in the European or national projects. We are now working on 6 different projects. The focus of them, they are so different, but the main idea is to participate, to give the opportunity of new contract models for our colleagues, or to promote or the participation of the ESCO model in different sectors. That means, for example, the housing beds are happening in the residential area. Housing beds is one particular project that it was the first mechanism in Spain about a warranty fund in the residential sector. Happening is to promote the combination between the heat pumps and renewable energy source. Our idea is, again, to promote our ESCO model in these sectors. FP&A, we are talking about to promote the private investment, mainly for the promoter, in this case for the ESCOs, right, and the combination for all of them. And EAS, a vehicle to market, there are 2 different ways. EAS, we are talking about energy as a service. It was born as efficiency equipment as a service, but suddenly we renamed this project because it was so correct. We are talking about the energy efficiency servitization and simplify the concept for the end user. So it's focused on SMEs. And vehicle to market is talking about the energy efficiency and the demand flexibility in order to vehicle to grid, vehicle to building, and to talk about DCOs, TCO, and the position of the ESCOs as demand aggregator in front of this context. So, on the national one, it's an agreement 8 years ago with the Spanish Change Office, Climate Change Office, in order to aggregate our project that they are producing reduction of CO2 emission, and to facilitate, of course, the aggregation for all our memberships. In other ideas, in December, we start with a new, in this case, live, because the previous are Horizon projects in Europe to work closely in the position of the ESCO model in the energy communities. To move on the energy targets, I want to share with you, first of all, the main topics in the European targets and how we are in Spain in this situation at this moment and the next objective. So 3 years ago, we are talking about in the 2 COPs before, in COP 25, in the clean energy package, to 40% of the ESG reduction, an objective of 32% of renewable energy consumed, and 32.5 in the energy efficiency. Weeks before, months before, the European Green Deal, we increased this objective of the GHG reduction to 50%, and another objective, in this case, to 50, to all the decarbonization to 90% of the GHG reductions. Meantime, appeared the pandemic of the COVID, and in the idea to work together, thanks to the ANESE, appear new goals, new deals, thanks to the Fit for 55, with new ETS or many other mechanisms to avoid the possibility to achieve this big increase, huge quantity of these objectives, as 55% of the GHG reduction, 40% of renewable energy consumed, and to increase 4 points more in the energy efficiency. And okay, that's we are working with all these objectives, and appear the geopolitical situation, especially in Europe, and the European Commission started with a new one, constantly legislation in order to the Repower EU, that increase the last 2 dependence objectives, the consumer on renewables energy to increase 15% of that, and a 3 point more in the energy efficiency. All the topics in 2030. So, sorry, but I say that in the next generation, and in the next slide, we have the different scope of that. We are talking about 800 billion euros to achieve these goals. Here in Spain, we have the roadmap in the short and medium term and the long term, of course. And our idea is in the 23% of the reduction is so far away from the rest of the common for the Europe, but it's true that in 2020 we don't reduce our GHG reduction, if don't we increase 15%. So it means that the real gap is more than the rest of the countries, because we have to increase our GHG reduction in 39%. So it's a lot. And we are in line with the objective of Fit for 55, with 42% of the renewable energies, and so similar than in the Repower with 39.5% of energy efficiency. Now, the current situation is Spain is in action a modification of this law, and in the next Friday, tomorrow, we analyze new showing different measures in the contingency plan. But now, from the 1st of August of 2022 to 31 of March 2023, we have to increase or reduce, in this case, the natural gas demand by 50%. In the scope of Spain is only 7%. Now you have here the main figures of I said before, but only to say about the repower EU, we need 210 billion more for achieve this important goal. So, in the detail of Spain, I said before about the PNIEC, is our short and medium-term roadmap to 2030. Now it's in update, in action to that, and in the long-term roadmap is review every 5 years. And we have an energy and climate act for a stable long-term policy framework. And in the past August, we have the development of a new contingency plan, real decree with different orient measure. But I want to share this slide, this picture with you, because it's so important to analyze what's happening in our country according to energy efficiency. It's clear that in 2020 we achieved the goal to reduction of 20%, but in 2021 we increased, according to the primary energy, around 6%. So that means that we achieved the goal in 2020 thanks to the pandemic and the switch off of the most important consumer, that it was the different factories. Talking about the Spain's recovery and resilience plan, we said before this mechanism is around 800 billion euros, and the part to Spain is 140 billion euros. There are many leverage policies. You have here the different lists, but we are talking about around more than 35% of the budget goes to the ecological transition means for our energy sectors. The strategy for Europe, I think, is clear. The first step always say the same: energy efficiency first, but it's more circular of this system. A second step, and works closely between these three steps, is more electrification of consumption, based mainly on renewables. And the third point is according to the repower with the renewables and low carbon fuels to abate this sector. But all together, and plus, and this is so important, this is a new mechanism, new infrastructure, talking about the consumer, the prosumer, that they can choose these best options for their needs. And we have to make together the new infrastructure to possibilitate this strategy. And we need, of course, the digitalization with a new system, more smarter. Now, moving on to Spanish ESCO market, we have the third edition of the report of the ESCO market in Spain. The name is Observatorio de Eficiencia Energética. We are market data from 2015 to 2020 as we analyze, and in the last edition we have to say thank you for more than 40 ESCOs companies, and for first time not only Spain have done, we analyze Portuguese market too in this report. The main figures according to the energy savings, emission reduction, the project vitality, all these figures are talking about the average per project, the reduction of more than 55%, around 45 tons of CO2, and a budget of this kind of project more than 700,000 euros. We are talking about the ESCOs turnover in the last year, 2020. We mobilized more than 1,600 million euros, and you have the difference turnover of the ESCOs, and according to the ESCO size of the number of the ESCOs, we are talking the majority of our ESCOs are medium and medium enterprise, and it's around 20%, less than 20% are big companies. We have here, according to the technologies, the savings and the scope of activities, more than 68% of our ESCOs are using monitoring and management energy systems. They are using indoor lighting, heating and cooling, and the rest of the technologies. If we talk about the different sector there, the scope of our activities in Spain, the majority are working in the private, more than 80%, and but the majority, the conclusion of this report is the majority are working in private and public sectors. And according to the savings per technology, we have the difference savings, and again, year by year, the lighting is one of the best option for the savings. Regarding contracts, you have the difference most common contracts in Spain, the energy performance contracting, engineering, procurement, construction management, but around 70% of our ESCOs are implemented this kind of contracts. Is the most dominant from the energy performance contracting, but I want to focus on the power purchase agreement, how the ESCOs are working in the self-consumption, solar PV, and this kind of contract appear for first time so strong in the last edition. And clearly, the energy performance contracting for our ESCO is the main dominant form, and especially in which ESCO make the investment and warranty savings. So it means that it's on balance of the ESCO side. Regarding the contract, the maturity period of months, we reduced from the previous edition, but we are talking about 10 months of maturity period of this kind of contract. And regarding the average of this, the duration of the contract is 8 years, 7 per private sector, 10 per public sector. So regarding to the financial mechanisms, 80% of the ESCOs are using their own funds, and 85%, so around 60% of our ESCOs are using external financial mechanisms to finance the projects. So for this 58% that are using external finance, 68 are using private finance investment funds, and 85% loans, and the rest of the mechanisms and focus exactly the same that appears on new mechanisms as crowdfunding or crowdlending in the preference of our ESCOs. We have the report of one of our European projects, the final this year, FP&I, talking about financing energy efficiency using private investment. It was an horizon, and the conclusion of of this report is that, again, for the external financial mechanisms, but again, the ESCOs using 23% of their own funds, but the majority of the first mechanism was the equity, thanks to the special proposed vehicle for that, and 26% the loans, and again, crowdfunding, lending appears in this kind of project and the results of them. Talking about the headquarters, the mainly around 70% are in these three states, Madrid, Barcelona, and Vizcaya, and the majority, around 80% of our companies are carry out projects in more than one state, autonomous community, the specific name in Spain. So that's a brief of the Spain and the comparative with Portuguese market. It's clear that in both Spain and in Portugal, the ESCO market is dominated by SMEs. So we have a loan developed for the next horizon. And in Spain, the 74% of the ESCOs are divisions is belonging to a company with more lines of business. Meantime, in Portugal, it's only around or less than 20% are belonging, they are ESCO division belonging to other kind of company. Around the budget, the average project budget are increasing year by year in Spain, and it's so similar in Portuguese market. We are analyzed for technology offer sector. We have the lighting industry or residential, and they are so common, so similar, the budget between Spain and Portuguese market. And we have so there are big opportunities in lighting in both countries, and industry, of course, and residential. According to the annual savings, it's so similar between the conclusion is similar between Spain and Portuguese market in annual electricity, but there are so difference in thermal energy savings. And that means that in Portuguese market there are big projects yet to a big opportunity, to try to feed, in the ESCO market. And so similar the energy savings in Spain and Portugal, maybe a little bit more developing in Spain than in Portugal, but it's also similar. Of course, you can download the observatory. I apologize because it's only a Spanish version, but you have here the QR for download for our web, this comparative Spain and Portugal and this observatory. Now, we'd like to talk about opportunities and barriers. We analyze the three more important opportunities for the ESCO side, for the client, and the barriers, how we can mitigate these barriers. But we have list here the most five or the most important opportunities for these different events. Regarding to the opportunity for ESCO, the first one is customer portfolio loyalty. That means long-term contract that we said before. In private, 7 years is the most common, but this depends, of course, the sector. And it's clear that technical operational risk is taken by the ESCO side. Is one of the definition, and the energy efficiency projects companion. Regarding economic stability with a recurring income, for the ESCO side is income predictability, of course, access to the cost-effective capital and financing because they are viable business cases. We are talking about the traceability of the ESCO model and always technological advance, cutting edge. This technology promote the higher savings with neutrality technology and the best solution for each project. For the client was the best opportunity according to the energy savings, of course, and now with the price of the high price cost of the energy is reducing the energy consumption in order to more competitiveness. So improve this kind of competitivity, cost reduction, and lower volatility of the energy related costs. It's clear with this model, the customer doesn't make the final investment. In the majority of them, there are some cases with warranty contracts, but if the ESCO are making the investment, the financial risk is taken, of course, by the ESCO, and they are increasing simplicity, offering turnkey products with including financing, only one person, only one company, to allow all this kind of business. Also, is so important for either, of course, the off balance of the ESCO side, of the client side, sorry, the end user, and renovation of facility, clearly with the most cutting edge technologies, but always with these risks in the ESCO side means that this technology show test and maturity, and that means an extra benefit of renovated asset and translate, of course, the asset at the end of the contract. Regarding barriers, the first one is the lack of knowledge of the ESCO model in the client side. Is uncertainty of whether investment will generate sufficient enough revenues to pay back the financing, and how we can mitigate things that maybe we are doing the majority of ESCO in the world, in the Global ESCO Network. Of course, we are working with EVO, so standardized measurement and verification protocols, and we need for further ESCOs model dissemination to avoid this lack of knowledge in the client sector. Regarding lack of governmental support, many help and subsidy programs don't include the ESCOs and direct beneficiary. And here, the association in our scope of lobbying, we have to reverse the situation. In the Spain cases, we achieved this objective in the majority of the investment in the Energy Generation Fund, as the ESCO appear as benefit in the different programs with this objective to achieve the goals and how the most important partner to achieve the energy efficiency goals. And of course, the accreditation of, in this case, thanks to the ANESE seal, is another tool to clarify, to establish the difference between the ESCOs and the energy service providers, and talking about always about the kilowatt hours per savings. So later in the different contracts, talk about the difference between these. And regarding the lack of citizen awareness, it's clear that the citizens are not aware of the ESCO model and its advantage. So it means that there are the fragmented market where the ESCO market present their models and contracts and ownership instead of focusing on the ESCO model itself. So how we can mitigate this is dissemination, workshop. I said before, thanks to the European projects, the position of the ESCO model in different sectors, and again, dissemination of to aware for the citizens this kind of ESCO. So you have here the presentation with the next more important opportunities and barriers, and a list on how we can mitigate this one. So, and in our report we have some surveys and how ANESE in this case can achieve the difference proposal, and the fifth most important action that our ESCO are asking us is the dissemination of information to potential customers. So I said before about the mitigation, financial and tax assistance, sectorial campaigns in rural media. This is so important for the rural media, this kind of ESCO, because they haven't got the possibility of the technical possibilities, and we have to make a big effort to help them. The dissemination events, talking about, and disclosure of such business cases. I said before about the publication of the guide. Now is next 3rd of November. Not talking about only about the technologies, if done business case, because it's a successful business case, because this is maybe the best dissemination and the most strategic business model for our ESCOs and for the model. And the score of our ESCOs is around 8 for the work that we are doing in the association. And other question that we did in our report is the main fields of ESCO interest, and 80% of our ESCO want to work in the next years in renewable energy communities, and the majority of them are want to work in white certificates here in Spain, energy savings certificates. And again, about the demand independent aggregators, or are so interesting in the energy as a service contract. So now we go to analyze a little bit of these fields of interest. So that's a brief, because we are in the last 5 minutes. According to the energy communities, you know that there are two in Europe: renewable energy communities and citizen energy communities. There are only the transport in Spain only its definition, and regarding to the citizen energy communities remains to be done. So even without being transport, it's clear that we are working closely with the policymakers in this case, and they are using the figure to give some access to grants, and you have the detail of different lines about the next gen funds to possibilitate the implementation of projects thanks to the support of the government. And the next target in 2023 is the implementation of at least 37 projects, and there are many of our ESCO working in this project. Regarding about guys, this are named in other countries white certificates. Here the energy saving certificates. I have here a picture about the voluntary the first step for the obligate subject for the savings reporting as country, and there are one option in the next legislation, not only to pay the obligation fulfillment for the National Energy Efficiency Fund, if done to achieve energy savings certificate. We think, and we are working closely in the definition of some of the standard measure for the catalog of standard measure, but again to activate the demand, and because we understand this is a mechanism so important that to promote the energy efficiency topics. Additional to this standard mechanism, an action mechanism is also foreseen at the starting of the system, and we are working with the policymaker in this topic. In the independent aggregators, just to focus on the transmission of the figure of the independent aggregator, and now we are, thanks to the sandboxes, the text for independent aggregators to participate as balancing service providers. So we are working in this regulation for all the energy markets. So it's one word that we are working now. Regarding to the servitization, we are participating with other two European countries, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Belgium, and we are here at the scope for the contract model specific for Spain, and the main summary of these model contracts is the pay-per-use model. It's clear that installation and maintenance of this equipment is assumed by technology providers, and focus on the energy as a service in the SMEs, so as medium enterprise companies. So it's I think the most characteristics is the simplify how we can make some mitigation of technology risks and of balance of this kind of contrast of the end user. No, so and we are starting with the dissemination of this kind of contract. Finally, I like to talk about the contracts. The most common contracts that you have the different definition in Spain about the energy performance contracting, energy supply contracting. There are so difference. The first one is more using, of course, by the ESCOs. We are talking about the savings in kilowatt per hour instead of the energy supply contract, more using per utilities. They are talking about the price of the kilowatt hour. So it could be savings, but the payment is not based on the energy efficiency achieved. We are talking about the power purchase agreement. It's long-term specific in electricity, are so common now in solar PV projects. Of course, between two parties, 5 to 15 years, are using, of course, to the engineering, procurement, construction management, but the client ESCO relationship ends when the installation ends, if the ESCO design and implement the energy efficiency project, and there are no warranty for all the contracts. No, it's only for the period of installation, or the first 1 year, and the installation ends. Focus on the integrated energy contracting, naming in Spain 5P, because it's the most common business model contract with the policymaker, in this case in IDAE in Spain, and 5P, thanks, we're talking about the name 5P by this service, 5 service including energy supply, maintenance, full warranty, improvement works, and improvement energy efficiency. We have 2 contract models in this way, one per buildings in the public sector, another for cities in lighting scope. And the last, I said before, the energy as a service, and then customer pays for the energy service they receive in the energy. So that's all. You have here my direction, my email, and I'm now, according to any at your disposal for any question or any additional asking about Spanish ESCO market. And thanks for your attendance.
Well, thank you very much, Carlos, for your very insightful presentation. I think I became a lot more knowledgeable about what's going on in Spain, and I really appreciate it. Actually, I just noticed how accustomed our attendees have become to this online sort of information dissemination, because I forgot to mention the housekeeping rules and basically that there will be a question and answer session, but actually the participants were way ahead and asked a lot of interesting questions during your presentation, and I took the liberty of writing them down and filtering some of them out for you. If there are other questions that you would like to ask, you're also welcome to continue writing and posting it, and let's see how far we get. We don't have much time left, but let's take it from the top. I also wanted to mention that Carlos is also officially a part of the advisory committee of the Global ESCO Network. That happened quite recently, and thank you very much for that, Carlos. So if we want to go towards the questions, I hope you can still hear me, Carlos, but there are a set of questions here. And let's take it from the top. What are the most promising energy efficiency services in the Spanish market? It's a question from Jose Maines. The most promising, maybe looking at the future, what do you think is coming ahead?
So, according to or regarding experience, I think the energies, the geopolitical situation maybe are making some different new situation. Of course, the energy efficiency is the main pillar of the ESCOs companies, but I think servitization, of course, different technologies of renewables energy are part of them. And energy communities, I think, is one of the most mechanisms to allow and to add it the consumer and the end user in any sector. No, we are talking about industrial or third sector. Thanks to the energy communities, we can work together, and the position of the ESCOs as demand aggregator, the company that know exactly about the production, the demand response, the demand, the optimization and reduction the demand in the end user, and all this knowledge has a strategic partner as an ESCO. So I think there are different mechanisms. So interesting. It's not the model contract. I think we have the ability to allow different model contracts in order to who we are talking about. No, and that's something so really interesting, and I think there are the future is or the present now, maybe this year with the current situation, a good opportunity for all together and all the possibilities together. No, it's a critical moment. No.
Yes, very much so. I think, and not only something that affects the Spanish market or the European market, but we're talking at the global level as well. So very much relevant indeed. Sorry. We have a range of other questions. I think some of them actually were answered during your presentation as the questions were coming in. So I'll skip some of them. There is a question of cell consumption. Well, basically, I assume that is basically the generation of renewable energy for cell consumption by the owner of the asset. There's a question on crowdfunding, and maybe you want to expand on that in the Spanish context. So what is crowdfunding and how it's been utilized in your context.
Yeah, it's a new mechanism, but we analyzed in the report, and thanks to the European project of FP&A, and yes, I think it's fixed for the energy communities. The majority of the people talk about the energy communities here in Spain, the citizens' energy communities, regarding solar PV projects, self-consumption. But you are as the concept of prosumer, and this kind of mechanism give you a big opportunity, and therefore is maybe the benefit for these kinds of mechanism fund or mechanism finance mechanism is not the huge numbers. So maybe the percentage of the loan is a little bit bigger than other possibilities. But if we are talking in small projects or residential projects, is made with for the citizen, we can say, no. So it's something that is going on, is moving on, and we have in our memberships different mechanisms. So it's not only something new, but something that start with big, strong mechanisms, and there are many possibilities for them. Not only in the solar PV, maybe in other. No, but it's true that the first results is that in the energy communities and the participation of the citizens as prosumers.
And also potential financiers. So through crowdfunding, as was the questions, I think. We also have a couple of questions from an old friend of the Global ESCO Network, Robert Panetta, which is also joined the webinar. Do Spanish ESCOs have difficulties in financing the projects, and what could be done to overcome difficulties in access to finance?
Yeah, it's something that appeared from the beginning of the ANESE, the finance, and in the previous crisis to the pandemic in Spain, it was one of the most important barrier for our ESCOs, that thanks to the participation and the different mechanisms to promote and to facilitate the different mechanisms for our ESCOs, thanks to the European projects as Invest, and later FP&A, and now we are working in different live projects to allow this kind of mechanism. We are mitigating this important barrier that yet exists, but I think the most important is thanks to new mechanisms and to understand not only for the investment fund or thanks to the SPV mechanism, for example, or the warranty fund. This is so important to the traceability of the ESCO model. If don't, the traditional ban is our labor to explain, and in that way, in Europe, we make a new normative. Is Valerie, is a methodology, is a bridge between the finance institutions and energy sectors, and this is how you can understand the finance institution can understand the most important issues for this kind of contract. And I think it's something really good. Simplify a lot. For example, the net value for us something so important. No, not only the payback or the tier of a project, if done how because the cash flow in our kind of contract, these kind of things. So the dissemination for that. So I think now it's not a really barrier, because we have many in our association companies for investment companies, financial institutions, And I think thanks to the Bay, they are working to upgrade and to facilitate this one. I think now is more important the dissemination of the model.
Yes, well, and they might also go hand in hand. It's good to hear that this initial big barrier that we have also observed in other markets, which is still very much present in other markets, is being gradually overcome in Spain. But also you mentioned the knowledge about the model, information and trust in the model, and the perceived risk from the financiers, which I think maybe Spain has been successful to address this issue. Another question is, has the Eurostat guidance on off-balance sheet EPC helped to have more projects in the public sector segments?
Yeah, without any doubt, yeah. We work with the Bay and the guideline, Eurostat guideline for the public sector in order to analyze exactly the energy performance contracting. Because for countries as Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal, the Mediterranean, we have a problem with the debt in the previous crisis because it was on balance of the administration, this kind of model. And thanks to a big effort with the investment bank in Europe, and work closely with the policymakers, we analyze, thanks to this Eurostat guideline, to analyze and clarify what's on balance or what's off balance on the public sector and on the ESCO. It's so important, for example, how we can, and to clarify for the ESCO model, because we are talking always the definition in Europe of the energy service companies are defined in one line so important that say that partially or full of our payments for the end user are based on our energy savings. And that means that we not are only making some installation, so we are not supplier, we are not only providers, because the installation or maintenance companies are other kind of companies. We are talking about the mitigation. What kind of mitigation? The technological mitigation, because we are with the guarantee of the technological and economical warranty in our scope, in our projects. So we are talking about, for example, the energy efficiency is on balance of the ESCOs company. If you are you only want to make a project of solar PV, only that scope, this is off balance, because at least now in Europe, the solar PV technology is not energy efficiency, not only. So that means that you can add it with other kind of solution and technology, with measurement verification, with energy efficiency reduction, many other technologies to reduce the demand. And if it's more than 50%, then it's on balance of the ESCO. That's so important to explain for the public sector.
Thank you. Thank you for the very clear answer, Carlos. There's also a question from Sergi Moles Cresco, and it's quite specific, but I'll read it out and see if we can go into that level of depth. But first of all, thank you very much for the thorough overview of the Spanish market. And he wonders if you know what could explain the fluctuation in project maturity, 9, 12, and 10 months in 2016, 18, and 20. So the difference, the fluctuation in project maturity between the years.
Yeah, it's clear that the last edition we are in the pandemic, no, because it was 2020, and event in pandemic, the market grow revenues, and that is the best conclusion. No, so I think the next year, the past year 2021 and this year 2022, we hope best figures, best number for that. But the fluctuation sometimes is according to the effort that make day by day the business organization of the ESCOs companies. So we part of our labor, not only in Spain, if done in the Global ESCO Network and the majority of the association in the world, is to speak about these models. No, I think it's so important, the dissemination. But the real and the current situation is that the contact between the end user, the industry, the third sector, or the residential is one person displaying a little bit. And it's true that our contract model are so complicated. The people, the aware of the end user of the protocol as IPv4 or others are so complicated. We are talking between technical people, and majority of the end user needs an ESCO as a partner, a strategic partner. But we need to do good projects, successful projects, and a good cooperation. I think the measure verification and these kind of protocols make a good successful business case, because you don't need to discuss with your client for the savings. If don't, you only show and you are pedagogic aspects, no, the capacity program for the end user, and this is so common, no, the long term. But if you analyze, we are talking in the 6 years, as we analyze, so similar, 10, 12, 9 months. I hope in the future we reduce, of course, this the period maturity of that. No, I hope so. Maybe the necessity and the strategy of the European Union, according to energy efficiency, give us some tools to mitigate this period of contract. Energy as a service, for example, is more simplified and is more understood by the end users than others. This is a good advantage that they have. It's true that it's off balance, true, but of course they ask again, energy performance contracting. The best thing in energy performance contracting is there is a transfer at the end of the contract of the asset for the end user. That's a good advantage, you know. So we have advantage and barriers in anyone. There are no one perfect model contract, but we are working on it.
Thank you, Carlos. I think we're more than 10 minutes over time, and there are still questions. And I'm sorry, but I think we'll cut the Q&A session here. I think some of the questions we'll try to address by email. If there are any pressing questions that you still would like to ask that you feel were not answered, you're welcome to reach out to us, and we will try to answer them and pass them over to Carlos when needed. And also, the recording and the presentations will be available on our website soon, in some days, and you will receive a notification with that when that is the case. With that, thank you very much, Carlos, for your time, for your knowledge, for sharing it with us. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for all the attendees. I think we had a great traction, a lot of attendees, and staying, a lot of them, until the very end, over time. Very good. It's inspiring to see the dedication of our attendees. Well, with that, a rest of good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to some of you. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say a farewell, Carlos.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the Global ESCO Network. And again, thank you for the big effort and the magnificent good job labor that you are doing. And it's an honor to be with you and share a little bit of our Spanish ESCO market and to collaborate closely for the develop of this so interesting and amazing and the best way for all the climate situation and the objectives with the ESCO market. No, so the ESCO solution I think is the best one. And thank you so much, really.